taking a critical look at the gaming news of the week. This is Augmented Reality, presented by the Triple S League.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Augmented Reality Podcast. For August 26th, 2020, it's the Wednesday edition of the show. Welcome everybody who's already active in the live chat. Do this live podcast twice a week, and this is your source for news, leaks, and analysis about games and the gaming industry. Here as always with Cybsidian. How are you doing today, sir?
Rushed. Oh my god, barely made it today. It's one of those days.
Yeah, it's a busy time of year, and it's a busy time for a lot of people. There's school is actually already started, I think, in some areas. Some teachers are back at work. People I know who work in the school industry, not the school industry, but who work in education are back at work now, and not all of them have students yet. But anyway, all the best to you if you work in that field. I know it's going to be especially tricky this year with all of the restrictions, with lockdowns and things, and all those things, those lovely things I can't say on YouTube. But our thoughts are with you because, yeah, it's going to be difficult.
Yeah.
But
I was busy because some small country keeps trying to start World War III. If you could stop that, that would be great. And then, so I had a couple of things. So there was that. There is the developer sending me cryptic messages about their new gaming company. I love it.
Anything you can share?
Soon you will know us. Very soon, my friend. I am interested in what blankety blank has blank 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 as well. I don't know why, but blank blank gut feeling says that blank blank working together blank 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 soon. Smiley face. Wish you a wonderful blankety blank 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 blank. Hope you're blank 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 and blank blank.
Okay, so what's usable in there? What's actual interesting?
Well, that's all the things that I can actually say without either IDing the person or IDing the company that they work for, or the project that they're starting, or something. So
interesting things to come. All right, well,
and then also had our community is really awesome.
Yep.
It was really awesome, and this didn't make me late today, but I did want to mention this. I can't believe the depth of discussions that we can have with our community members and the range of discussions that we can have with them. I had a wonderful brief early morning chat with one of our community members over ecological sustainability via goats, sheep, and chickens. It was great conversation. And like kind of precursor to a conversation, and that was pretty awesome, and I enjoy that, and the fact that we can do that at any time is great. Mm-hmm. So yes, that is awesome. I very much appreciate it, and I appreciate the community that's here. I had something else too. I think it's relevant to some of our stories, so let's hop into that.
We do have a great community. If you want to join the Triple S Legion, find the link to the Discord server in the description below. All right, on to the gaming news stuff for today. Quite a few stories to get through. We've got some Cyberpunk info for you all, plus a new Witcher game. Yes, it's happened. No, it's not what we were expecting. In a couple of ways. We're going to be talking about Black Myth Wukong. We had just on Saturday. Cyb and I actually watched the trailer and the gameplay right after the podcast on Saturday. We hadn't seen it beforehand, so we couldn't really talk about it on Saturday, but it was awesome, first of all, and plus we've gathered some more info now, so we'll be able to talk a little more about that. A couple of quick stories to get through. Gamescom starts very soon. As a matter of fact, I believe it starts tomorrow, if I'm not mistaken, with opening night live. You can check our schedule on the Discord server for that. It's going to be hosted by Jeff Keighley, so 3 to 4 days of gaming industry stuff. Unfortunately, not going to be able to cover it with the depth that we have done certain other events this past summer. I am away this weekend, so I'm actually not going to be on the Saturday podcast. Cyb is going to be running that solo. I'm not sure what he's planning to do, a full-blown podcast or a game stream or something, but anyway, he'll announce that once he's got it figured out. But yeah, so Gamescom is starting up. Should be some interesting info to talk about from that. And in this whole squabble between Epic and Apple, which we've been touching on, Terra K says the what's that? Stream fall? Hang on one second.
You mean stream fails?
Stream did
It's a channel or like a group of them.
No. I thought that from what people were saying in the chat that our stream had gone down. Sorry, I misinterpreted what was being said there.
Oh, I thought you were saying fails.
No, sorry about that. I thought someone said stream fail, and my apologies. Okay, back to it. So this whole squabble.
He's talking about the actual stream fail thing. Yes.
Yeah. So so this whole squabble between Microsoft, or sorry, not Microsoft, Epic and Apple.
Well, now Microsoft is involved.
Microsoft is involved now. It's really interesting. So, of course, so there's this squabble between Epic and Apple because Epic put, they put in-game purchases right in their app on the mobile version of Fortnite to bypass Apple's store, so that Apple doesn't get their cut of the transactions, basically. And they have basically done this to bait Apple into taking action against them, so that Epic could then turn around and take, or attempt to take, legal action. Fall Guys, that's what you were saying. Stream Fall Guys. Okay. I thought you said stream failed guys. Sorry, I totally, and I had a momentary panic. I thought the stream had gone down. There we go. He wants you to stream Fall Guys. That's what he wants. Okay.
I could, but do you all want to see me just win the first game outright? I mean, like, really? I mean, that's big talk. That's big talk. I shouldn't say that.
Yeah. Might want to be a little more humble there, because if it turns out you're not very good at it, you're going to be eating your words.
Asmund Gold said the same thing. That's what I'm referring to.
Oh, I see.
He said the same thing, and it took him a couple days to get a win. He's like, oh yeah, I'm going to be good at this. I'm going to be good at this. And one time he was like, it was like his second or third game. He was like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to be the first. No problem, guys. We're dealing with scrubs. He jumps onto the first thing. Boom, booted off the side of the wall.
I've seen some hilarious videos of
so funny. It was like that guy who's like, he's going on the epic speech about how he's going to win the eye tracking contest against a bunch of ladies, and he's going on this epic speech. He's like, no, I will stand up. I will do this for everyone everywhere. And he has a great speech, and he sits down. He's like, let's do it. Eyes immediately went to the thing that it wasn't supposed to, and he just screams, ah.
Well, you're fighting some biology there.
Yeah.
But anyway, all right. Back to this Epic and Apple story. We'll get through this. We don't want to take a ton of time talking about this, but so Epic baited Apple into banning Fortnite off the Apple Store. Epic turned around and sued Apple. Yep. There's some squabbling back and forth. Apple saying Epic was asking for special treatment. Epic saying no. We weren't asking for special treatment. We were asking for the same treatment. We were asking for different treatment, but we wanted it for all developers, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, this culminated in Apple basically banning Epic's developer license. Mm-hmm. So basically, not just banning Fortnite, but anything made with the, they no longer had a development, SDK for the Unreal Engine, which is made by Epic, and of course,
it's like 50% of the games on there are made using that, or using some tools with that. I mean, it's a lot. It might not be 50%, but it is a large majority of games.
Well, it's one of the biggest development engines out there for like big studios, but also little indie projects. So Microsoft got involved because guess what? They use the Epic engine the Unreal Engine for some of their projects. They're developers for things on Apple Store, like they have I can't remember what game it was they mentioned, but Microsoft actually has an interest in this because they, along with many other companies and developers, this will affect them significantly. If you can no longer develop for Apple on the with the Unreal Engine, that's a huge deal. So Microsoft has gotten involved. Still a lot to unfold with all of this. We're not going to dive deep into it now because we're not expert legal minds on this, but it's interesting to see everything that's happening. But that's sort of the latest updates on that. And then the one other smaller story we wanted to get to. I mean, not that it's a small story in terms of importance, but just in terms of time, we wanted to give it today. There's been a big shakeup with Lab Zero Games, who were developing the Skullgirls game, or a Skullgirls game, one game for the Skullgirls IP, and the IP owner has cut ties with the studio. Lots of people, lots of developers at that studio have left the studio over allegations of just misbehavior by the guy who owns the studio.
So I know some of the players involved in this, and what I'll say from the get-go is that when you're working with people who make indie games, you're dealing with a little bit of like fringe type people. They're not always normal. Anybody who will sit themselves down. I mean, I'm an oddball. I work around like 18 hours a day typically, and I have been doing so for many years. I will sit down and write 7 to 10,000 words in a sitting, and I can do that multiple days in a row. This is not normal behavior for most people, and I am not. And there are repercussions for this, obviously. I'm a bit of an oddball. I'm a little bit of I stand out in a crowd, not always in the best way possible. And so I can understand that. So I mean, part of that's the autism, part of that's just being weird. But when you're dealing with people who make fringe indie games that are not for a like the mainstream, it's either something odd or different, or not something that's easily sold on very many platforms. That's when you get into really fringy, crazy people that make me look to borrow the colloquial term, which I'm not sure is how accurate it is. It makes me look normal, right? And so there are some people who have really weird way of doing things, or have really bizarre habits, or have in this particular case, have no sense of not when to mention things that they probably shouldn't be mentioning in polite company, or saying things that, I mean, it borderlines on this particular situation, borderlines on criminal. Not all situations do. Some are just kind of weird, right? I knew a guy who was obsessed about working on a video game, and he was also obsessed about his chickens. He would talk for hours about them. And again, some of that some of that is autism, some of that is other neurological differences between people. But in some cases, it does unfortunately border on, well, it certainly borders on things that the HR department would have heart attacks over, and things that you're supposed to attend, training sessions for, and things that potentially can get you fired if you were to do them in most companies. As far as we know, there was no action. It was just a lot of like really bizarre talk and saying things and using language in ways that are definitely not acceptable and polite behavior. Again, some people just don't know how to function properly in group stuff. I don't know the creator very well. I've seen a lot of stuff with him from time to time. I don't know if he's a deviant, if he's has some serious neurological differences, if he is, and I don't mean that insulting, because I fall into that category, but in this case, like if that's particular cause or reason for something in particular, I don't know the ins and outs from it. I do know that somebody needed to, and from all accounts, somebody did sit him down and say, hey, what you're saying is very inappropriate. It's not acceptable here. It might be acceptable with your like close friends, but or an SO or something like that, but in this particular case is absolutely not acceptable. And you can't be saying this stuff randomly to your employees, because once you start getting employees, there's a little bit of a difference of a relationship there, and you have to avoid saying this kinds of stuff. And again, I'm stating this like this because as far as we know, it was just words. And
so like nothing, yeah, no legal allegations are being made, or
no legal allegations.
Yeah,
which I and again, which I do say that he's a fringe indie developer who makes fringe indie content that is very bizarre. I mean, that's the first thing about Skullgirls is it's bizarre. It is not. It's like it's a type of game that's just the artistry and the scenes and the creatures are not normal. Like they're beyond Tim Burton. What's that Tim Burton Christmas Christmas thingy?
Well,
Nightmare
Before Christmas. I mean, almost anything that guy does is just
yes,
makes you wonder.
It's really bizarre and it's kind of off. It's kind of off kilter, but he doesn't have the same bad habits of talking about weird or gross.
Well, that's the thing. Like people that make weird out there stuff are not necessarily, troubled individuals. But also, I mean, I don't think that this just applies to indie devs. I mean, we have heard.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. What I'm saying is, you get kind of the same thing with a lot of artists, right? Creative people can be odd and different and weird from time to time. Now, the sad thing is that people came to him, including his publisher company, a lot of his close employees that he'd been working with for years, and said, "Hey, you really need to cut this out. You really need to stop this. You've got to adjust your attitude, your perspective, and your communication in public." And this is where he started to kind of listen, but then at some point, as the story is going, he basically said, "No, I refuse." And then he started turning on people very quickly, which again I mean, it's one of these scenarios where either he's a little disturbed and doesn't really know how to handle himself, and has gone kind of mad with power, or he's a very, 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 very confused person when it comes to interacting with people generally, is kind of a crazy nut. There's a fellow who solved one of the greatest math problems ever that kind of falls into this scenario of he refuses to accept reward or compensation for having discovered one of the greatest math problems ever. He stays at home with his mother and refuses to go out, doesn't shower, doesn't bathe, does all this weird stuff that most people consider really bizarre behavior, but is in fact just, genius and madness are often two sides of the same coin, and it can be very bad on personal relationships and business relationships and professional relationships because of stuff like that. So we don't really know what's the case. Is he gone power mad, or is he now starting to have these issues and regress into himself? I can't say for sure. All I can say is that from the outside looking in, there is no physical problems physical assaults or physical or touching or anything like that. And in that case, that's kind of a good thing, but it's a sad thing that he apparently is not willing to change his behavior on this stuff, and it looks like he's going to lose all of his employees, his company, his publisher, and his IP is kind of up in the air right now.
Well, it's not. He doesn't own the IP. Or are you talking about a different IP that he does own?
No, the Skullgirls IP. I believe I believe he came to some agreement to have this publishing company work on it. So I don't know how much of I don't know if they'll be able to continue working on that, or if he's going to have some ability to like claim that back in some way, shape, or form. So right now it's kind of up in the air. I was told that the IP is solidly in the hands of the publisher for at least the next game or two. If that is the case, then they'll be able to make one or two games with it before it reverts back to him. I'm not positive on that, and I'm not. That's not been confirmed. So it's just kind of a sad situation, and it's a bit of a sad situation because he clearly doesn't want to change, and he clearly has problems communicating with people on some level, and I feel bad for people like that because it's a lot of wasted potential. It's also a lot of problems that in some cases cannot be necessarily remedied, and that sucks. And I choose personally not to judge people that fall into those scenarios too harshly because I've been on the receiving end of that before, and that's no fun. And so I would say I hope he takes a minute to listen to the people who truly care about him and change his behavior, because the alternative is that he's going to probably be alone for the rest of his life, and that's going to suck. And I would hope that he goes out of his way, because the best thing you can do in life is negotiate, because if not, then you're either getting used or you are an abuser yourself. So you get three choices in life: be abused, be the abuser, or negotiate constantly. And he should learn how to negotiate his attitude and his interaction. And it is something that is obviously like it's obviously not an easy thing to talk about. It's a very uncomfortable discussion and conversation, and I have had those really difficult conversations before, like I said, on for myself, because there are things that I just don't notice that I'm doing wrong, and I don't know that I'm doing wrong, and I don't mean anything. They were I won't go into them, but they were problems, and of not an attitude or communication problem. It was just it was other stuff, and that's the kind of stuff that sometimes we don't see. Like I didn't see it at all. Like I didn't notice it. I didn't comprehend it. Somebody had to say, no, this is a big problem. You have to fix it. And after many piles of bleach and some white phosphorus, we solved the problem. So
you're getting brazen with your jokes lately. Somebody's going to take you seriously. Anyway, we got to move on from that. But it actually, as Notional points out in the chat, he's like, "Is this Randy Pitchford we're talking about?" I mean, it could be. No, it's not. We're talking about the owner of the studio that was working on the Skullgirls game, and he has lost many employees, and he's lost the right to work on the IP.
Let's just say from what I've heard, and again, this is allegedly, Randy Pitchford would make him look like a regular, like, down to earth boss compared to this fellow. Because of all the bizarre stuff that he does. So
fair enough, but you do have some individuals even up in the AAA industries, or the AAA companies in this industry that do say and do horribly inappropriate things, and we've talked about some of them. Even in studios like publishing companies like Ubisoft, the one guy, the guy that made all of the creative decisions.
Like, I'm not excusing his behavior, but I am wondering what the root cause of it is, and I feel bad for it if it's a cause that he just has an incredibly hard time dealing with. It's nothing malicious. It's just he's kind of a weird dude, and I've met people like that. I know far too many people like that in this industry, and actually in both industries that I work in. I meet a lot of those kinds of people. Not so much in one, but they're there.
All right, got to move on though. So let's get to the Cyberpunk stuff. I think some people are probably interested in that. So let's talk about the news we have today for Cyberpunk 2077, which interestingly revolves around cars and vehicles. There was an interview recently with, I am going to butcher this guy's name, and I apologize. Well, first name Pavo, one of about 17,000 Pavos that works for for CD Projekt Red, I think. Paavo Mielnikczuk or Mielnikczuk, something. I hate mispronouncing names, and I didn't have time to look up a pronunciation guide for that one. But anyway, he is the art director for Characters and Hard Surfaces at CD Projekt Red. That's an interesting title. Very long title. Basically, he does art direction for characters and also, some of the graphical art that you'll see on various surfaces in the game. Things like that. I found his online profile, like his an online gallery of his. Actually, he's done some cool stuff, and has been working with CD Projekt Red since the Witcher days. So he did an interview in which he revealed some things about vehicles in the game, and according to him, there's going to be about 29 basic car models in Cyberpunk 2077. So I'm not sure why, and that's how they quote him in many of the articles that I've read about this interview. So I'm not sure why he said about 29 instead of about 30. Maybe it's like at 29 and they're like maybe still playing with it to see, are they going to add a couple more?
I think in the games industry, it's always better to start on a lower side and work your way up that way. It is very definitely not a good idea to say, oh yeah, we got like 30, and then it comes out and you have 29. People will crucify you because that's not 30, that's 29. If you had 31, then you could say we have about 30. Because then and I'm serious, this is the way that some people calculate this stuff, and it's a little crazy.
Yeah. Anyway, so about 29 basic car models. So now that's the base models. Mm-hmm. Each base model will come in a whole bunch of varieties. We don't know how many, but each base model will come in a bunch of varieties, because even though we can't modify the cars ourselves as players, we can't mod the vehicles, there will be modded vehicles in the game. So they've created, the devs have created a bunch of modded versions of these 29-ish different cars, and we're going to find, wide varieties of them throughout the game. I'm going to show you an example right now. I've got a couple of screenshots. So here, if you're watching on YouTube, check out what's on the screen right now. This is the Quadra Reaver. CDPR released a GIF of this car, if you'll recall. It's like a GIF where the camera's just spinning around this car. So this is like a Nomad version of this car. Mm-hmm. So we're all fairly familiar with this. Now here is another version of that car. This is a modified Quadra Type 66. As you can see, it's got different artwork and different modifications all over it. I didn't tally up all of what's different, but anyway, you can see it's quite different. Now, the important thing to note about these modifications is they're not just reskins. They're actually going to change the way that the vehicles behave and function. They're going to improve safety features for the drivers. For example, Nomads like to install mine detectors. As they're driving around the Badlands, they don't want to be, hit by explosives that someone put there, so they'll have mine detectors on them. And so you'll likely have, corporate cars are going to have certain things on them. Cars. I don't know how they're all going to do it, but there are definitely going to be distinct Nomad versions for a lot of cars. They're going to trick them out like they like to have them as they're driving around, but you'll have cars of the same base type that'll handle differently. They'll have different features and things like that. So that's very cool. And I wanted to talk about speed race mods. So I'm sure, if a car is used for speed racing, it's definitely going to have, or like street racing. You're probably going to find sort of street racing models that have, different kinds of things that make them go really fast or turn really sharply or that kind of thing. So yeah, very cool. Now, I wanted to ask you this, Saib. since they have this system in place where the developers are able to go in and tweak the cars and change things out about them, how difficult is it going to be for an enterprising modder out there after the game releases to just build a car modding system into the game, do you think?
Hard. I think most of these vehicles have been built by hand and require a fair amount of tweaking to get them just right. I think there's a different system in each one that is going to offer fairly unique challenges. And this is where I think it's important to remember this distinction for when we're dealing and when we're looking at why they didn't add this in kind of to the base of the game. And I think that it's probably a combination of how exactly the vehicles are created and built, and that each vehicle requires a little bit more effort than normal to get it functioning correctly, and or that it will looks a little choppy if you don't do it right. I think that it'll probably end up being, what's a good example? Probably the best example. Again, I do hate overusing it a lot, but Skyrim housing is probably the best example. There is no doubt an ease of system that allowed for the housing system to be in there from the get-go. You can buy a couple of the different places and you can do a bunch of different things within those places. And so that's kind of like each car and then the like alterations of the different styles and whatnot. You don't really have true creative freedom, but you have a lot of like options available to you. And that then when the modders come in and they can make amazing, beautiful things with that base system, and then port that into the game with ease for each unique model. And that it'll probably take one or two expansions, full-size expansions, for them to be able to add that system, especially if it remains a popular request. It'll probably get in there, much like was it Hearthfire for Skyrim, where then you could literally do a significant amount of customization. And then, of course, we saw from the iteration of that engine with Fallout 4, you had the ability to just go nuts and build your own place as much as you wanted to within Fallout 4, multiple places. So that's probably from a technical perspective, I know it's not the greatest way of explaining it, but that's probably one of the best ways that I think I can explain it, is that I think really when we're looking at it, I don't think they're going to have the ability to make this just like pop the next day and we're going to have customizable cars, because if they could do that, that would have already been in the system. I think there's some technical limitations, and then there's some definitely some processing limitations there that are preventing that. But it is something that more and more, every time we see more info about this, and this is a big one here, I suspect that we will have this as a full feature within the first or second expansion for sure, because it seems to be what most people are interested in. It seems that there's a very deep system there. It's just not possible for them to sardine can it in with all of the other stuff that's going into the game on release, and that it would need probably another year of development to really get it smoothed out to the point where you're not crashing the system because you're building cars. And I think that's probably where it's at. Well, I think that somebody be able to create a mod that you'll be able to do this with kind of before they can? That's possible. It depends on how much is there, right? But I don't think we're going to see this in a patch. I think we're going to see it in a full-on DLC, and that depending on how people react to the various stories within the game, I think that's really going to change the way that they push that DLC. I think they have ideas for the DLC. I think they have some basic concepts, but I don't think anything's in concrete because they don't like working on the DLCs at the same time that they're working on the game for release. This is a good company that does things right. And if you're doing something right, any idea that you have that you're like, okay, I would love this idea, but we can't get it into the base game, put it off to the side. We'll focus on it later for the expansion or for one of the expansions. Not like other companies who they just take stuff that has been developed for the full release of the game and said, hey, well, let's just throw this in as DLC, make them pay for it later on, right? Which is a disgusting practice, a truly, truly disgusting practice that far too many developers just seem to be totally okay with. Taking things from the live game that have been prepared and have been built to be with the game at release, and then just cutting it out, leaving this big puzzle piece hole there, and then you get to have to pay for that to fill that in later on down the road. That's not what CDPR does. I think that they had worked on this a little bit, but because they have not been able to guarantee that they can get it into the thing, rather than putting more emphasis and energy onto trying to make it available and then putting it out in some kind of a patch or a DLC later, I think they said, oh, let's do that, save that for an expansion, and we'll just make as many cars as we can and then release as many different cars as we can, and that the developers or the mods will come in, figure out how to do that, and then we'll have a ton of modded cars, and then also eventually at some point we'll get a system that allows us to build it probably from both sources, probably an unofficial one and then an official one later on, because that's how, looking back at other projects in the past, that's how that's worked, and I think that's probably likely how this is going to work again. Again, nothing on that is inside knowledge. That's just looking at how tech is usually done and how good company does it versus a bad company, where it's like, let's make this, and then take half of those things, pull them out, and cram them in for the next DLC. So, yeah.
JH asks, you think we'll get more cars added in? Most likely, I think. And I think so, too. Like, with, with expansions and things, especially, like, if, say, they add a faction, I'm sure they will add cars that are stylized by that faction, that kind of a thing. Plus, I mean, that's one thing I'm sure modders will be able to do is just make cars for the game.
Yeah.
It'll be trickier to make like a car, like a dynamic car customization thing, but making cars for the game, changing the graphics on the cars, that kind of thing. Like you want to drive around with Hello Kitty on your door, that'll be pretty easy. Now, I also want to point out something else about the car that's on your screen right now. Now this was already sort of shown in one of the in some of the footage that CD Projekt has released, but this was detailed by Pavo, our other friend Pavo, not Sasko, but the art director Pavo, who, he explained how the windows work on some of these cars, which, like the one on the screen here, like it doesn't actually have windows. Like it's all closed off entirely. Like there's those spaces where the windows should be, but they're just not there. That's because for a lot of cars, the windows are actually digital screens. On the inside of the car, it's digital screens that light up and show you everything that's going on outside. But on the outside, they're armored for protection, privacy, whatever. Anyway, so that's really interesting. So that means you can have things like a HUD on the windshield, which we have seen, like the speedometer, like right on the windshield of the car. Because it's not actually a windshield, it's a digital screen, and sometimes they can glitch out. But he described how when you first get into a car, it's like completely dark, and then everything boots up and turns on, and it's kind of a cool process. Now, yeah, so
I've really been waiting for this technology to come to like real life cars. It's like getting there. It's getting there.
I'm sure we're not far off. It's essentially, it's kind of like just having a full VR system, except it's actually showing you what's really outside. I wonder if it's like, I wonder if you could hack it, and so like say you're trying to arrest somebody who's in their car. I wonder if you could hack their system, so they think there's like 30 cops around them, and so they get out, but there's actually just one dude waiting to take them down or something. I don't know. Interesting.
I mean, I may have some baseline experience with. I should really not talk about this. All right, let's move on.
Yeah.
Let's move
So
on.
anyway, Star Trek type stuff.
Hmm.
All right. So yeah, the cars in the game looking like they're going to be really cool.
Oh yeah,
just
they're
checking
looking
my
great. Seriously.
and just watching the driving footage. Like it looks like driving around the game is going to be a lot of fun. I mean, it's not going to. It's not a driving game. Like it may not be at the same level as like a GTA type game, but it looks like it'll be pretty good. And just double checking my notes here to make sure I haven't missed anything about this. Oh, I did want to mention this. One of the somebody on the cdprojectred.com forum outlined a bunch of this info, but also outlined all of the vehicle manufacturers that are in Cyberpunk lore, and there's 12 of them. So we could potentially be getting as high as 12 different makes of cars. Now they're not necessarily all going to be in Cyberpunk 2077. I believe this list is for just Cyberpunk lore in general, but there are some that produce kind of really high-end cars and some that produce lower tier cars. Oh, there's also motorbikes too. So yeah, I think there's going to be a pretty solid variety of stuff. Anyway, also this new screenshot of this car just looks so awesome. All right, and while we're on CD Projekt Red news, guess what? There's a new Witcher game. So back in 2018, we told you about Spocko, a new studio that CD Projekt Red set up, focused on mobile development. And Saib, you figured they were working on something connected to Cyberpunk.
I was. Yes, I was. I think we knew that they were working on more than one project. Like, not
yeah,
Spocko
they still might
directly.
be, right? They still might be
They
doing something else.
they as a studio, we know that they're working on several different things,
Mm-hmm.
and that they had several ideas for stuff, and that some of that stuff was that anything that they're going to be putting out was going to be connected to a main genre thing. So yeah, we had been looking for this for a while. There's been like tons of leaks so that they have been working on stuff that they had been hiring people for a number of different roles. We weren't really able to pin it down. We knew that there was some kind of like scary factor supposed to be added to it because they were hiring people who had experience with horror type games or scary type environmental stuff or creatures design. So for a while we were thinking it was a horror game that Spocko directly was working on. There's still other projects that they're working on in different parts of the company.
Well,
As far as we can tell,
I mean,
but
this is kind of a horror game.
mm-hmm.
I mean, it's Witcher. We don't think of Witcher as.
This still doesn't explain all of the missing devs because like you'll get numbers from them at certain points and this is how you typically can like figure out how much of the company is working on one thing versus another. And it's like if you have 1,000 employees, 500 of them are working on project A, 200 of them are working on project B, and 100 of them were working on project C, and that's all we are working on, everybody. Give a round of applause because that's all she wrote. Some enterprising person should put up their hand and say, so what are the other 200 employees working on? Because, I mean, that's big enough to be a secondary project from your own numbers. I'm just curious as to where that extra 200 is. And now this is why not everybody's 100% honest or 100% direct with the numbers that they give. But we know that they still have some people not accounted for in the project groupings. And that obviously means somebody's working on something. And this is one of the projects that we knew. I'm a little surprised that they popped it out right now. Like I was really surprised when it came out. I was expecting a later kind of like a late fallish announcement, not something this soon. So this is interesting. It's definitely interesting that they came up with this now. Um,
Yeah, for those of you who aren't caught up, it's called The Witcher Monster Slayer, and it is a mobile augmented reality title. So in
that
the same
that does
vein
have
of
kind of creepy slash dark vibes.
yeah,
So for the love of God, please don't go running around in the middle of the night in some high danger, crazy part of neck of the woods, or city, or somewhere like where there's ravines, or wild animals, or high amounts of like mugging crime. Please don't do that, like so many people did with Pokemon Go.
hmm
uh
so yeah, so it's along the same lines of Pokemon Go, or there's that Minecraft,
mhm.
that Minecraft augmented reality game. There was one. Five Nights at Freddy's did one. There's a there's a bunch of them now. But basically, the premise is you go around, and it looks like your phone might alert you that there's a monster nearby, and so like they've set it up so that these monsters exist in the physical world. Obviously, they're not physically there, but you hold up your phone, you can see the monster, you fight it. I guess by swiping, tapping, whatever whatever phone controls they have, and you collect trophies. There are NPCs you can encounter that'll give you quests, various things like that. Don't have a ton of details, but we do have there is actual gameplay footage out there. There is a Witcher Monster Slayer YouTube channel that has the announcement trailer, but it also has another gameplay trailer that actually shows gameplay. Kudos on them for that. Actually showing us some gameplay. This is the first one of this type of title that I have actually been interested in checking out. Like Pokemon Go, never even played it. Some of the other ones, I'm like, meh. This is kind of cool. Although it is weird to think of like standing on a city street, fighting, a griffin, and seeing like city buildings in the background, or things like that. So kind of immersion breaking in that aspect, but I mean that's the type of game it is, right? So, but they even put those types of screenshots up on their website, thewitchermonsterslayer.com. Giant scorpion thing in front of like a residential building, or it's definitely in the modern world, but there's monsters around. And very medieval looking NPCs. So, yes, now there is some kind of a map element to it as well. And so I'm not sure if they're taking like real world maps and adapting them to make them look Witcherish. I'm curious how that all works and fits together. But it's an interesting concept. I'm interested to check it out. We don't know the release date yet. We do know that it's going to be free to play. And so that's caused some stir, Cybe. How are they going to monetize this? And
Yeah.
I even heard some people saying things like, "Oh, CD Projekt is becoming the next EA," which I mean I think is a bit of a stretch. But what do you think? Any thoughts on that?
It's I doubt that they're going to do anything too ridiculous. I think they're going to have some basic, like, normalized packages. That's what the other one's done, that they put out. Um, they're fairly fairish. It's a mobile game, so it's kind of like, everybody agrees that, oh, well, you're supposed to spend $500 on a mobile game. That's just common sense.
I never agreed to that.
I've never agreed to that either, and I don't like it. So I don't know. I am going to be really curious as to what. There's, I mean, yeah, basically either you're buying time, you're buying shortcuts, you're buying bonus experience, you're buying creatures directly, and it's kind of like a gotcha thing. You're buying customization sometimes. Yeah, well, customization could be a big one. I mean, there's entire games that have for years floated on just customization, and I'm for the most part okay with that. Although I didn't like I don't like the way that some of them do it. Some of them they opt in for um they opt in for the character customization, but then they turn their back on the modders and the modding community that mods new outfits and creates new outfits and stuff like that. And I don't think that that's necessarily good either, because you're running the risk at shutting out a very beneficial and healthy part of the game. I mean, I've quit games once they stopped allowing user created mods for like customization and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's just not a good sign. So I'm not sure. We'll see. It's definitely going to take a little bit of time. But yeah.
Again, we don't know the release date, but we'll update you on that as soon as we do know. Got to push on here. We're running low on time. I do want to say, if this is the Augmented Reality Podcast, and please slam that like button if you haven't already. We'd really appreciate that. It tells the YouTube bots that you like this content and want to see more of it. We really appreciate it as well. Going to push on to our final topic here, Black Myth Wukong. So this game kind of has taken the internet by storm right now. We had the premiere trailer for this released last week. It's a retelling of the myth, the Chinese legend of Sun Wukong, the Monkey King, Journey to the West, and it just looks awesome. I think that's kind of the general take from it, is people thought this looked really impressive. It's from a bunch of it's from an indie studio in China, many of whom formerly worked for Tencent. And so we can't really dive into all the details about that for time's sake, but it does look like it looks like they're trying to do their own kind of retelling of the story while staying faithful to the classic legend and the called Journey to the West.
Yeah. So and yeah, the fact that these employees came from Tencent and walked away, the fact that they built, so they made a couple of phone games, app games, and they did it for basically they're like, we need money to work on a passion project, and that this is the passion project. So it's gonna be really interesting to see where this ends up.
Yeah, they did an interview with Chinese media. And you can watch it if you can speak Mandarin or understand Mandarin. You can watch the interview that they did. Daniel Ahmad did put out some translations of some of what was said, and so we'll go through these points for the rest of our time here. So I'm gonna skip that first one because it's kind of more in-house stuff. So the studio released this trailer. By the way, the studio is called Game Science Studio. It was founded in June 2014 by ex-Tencent staff. Daniel Ahmad has a huge thread about that as well on Twitter. But they were working at Tencent's Quantum Studio on a game called Asura, which was a Journey to the West themed MMORPG. And it ended up underperforming. But now they've started their own studio. They're making their own Journey to the West game, and it's a single player action adventure RPG. They want to create it to AAA standards. They released the trailer last week to show the world what they had worked on and to recruit new staff. They want to hire new people to work on this. There's a lot of work ahead of them. We have no release date for this game. It's probably at least a couple of years away. They want to. And so they're trying to make a name for themselves in the games industry right now. Mm-hmm. They were not expecting it to have the humongous reaction that it that it's had. They were quite surprised, actually, that it's just had it's like I said, it's kind of taken the internet by storm. It's kind of it's gone crazy with people thinking it just looks amazing. So they've completed a lot of R&D on the project. There's a lot that still needs to be done. They have to complete the game script, add in some of the combat elements. We saw a wide variety of stuff in the trailer. Wukong can transform. He can transform into animals. He has all kinds of abilities, like creating clone warriors, and they stay true to the legend of him being able to pluck hairs off his head and transform it into a clone warrior or something like that. So in the trailer, it showed him being able to do that with a weapon. He got this new weapon from a boss he defeated, and basically put it on his head, like a hair. It sounds like they're going to kind of retreat now and just hunker down and work on the game some more. But they were very happy to see the great feedback from fans and from people in the industry, and the reactions from companies such as CD Projekt Red, Epic Games, and Nvidia, and lots of other big names in the industry as well. Obvious inspirations for the game: God of War. That actually the single camera shot throughout the whole trailer there was inspired by God of War. Other obvious inspirations: Sekiro, and what was the other one they said? Monster Hunter World. Yeah, or just Monster Hunter. So if you like those games, those are the games that they're kind of taking a lot of inspiration from. And apparently, if this there's an article here that says Black Myth Wukong is in the race to become China's first AAA game. I'm not sure what China must have produced. AAA games.
Well, I mean,
before.
not really, no. No, this is interesting, and I mean, it's potentially very interesting, right? And is potentially a big change in the system. They're in a part of China where it's still very, very cheap to hire people, and there's still a lot that could be done. So watching this will be very fascinating to see what happens to it. Right now, we know that they're not attached to a government-owned company, and if they want to do any big business, they'll end up having to be. So it'll be interesting to see where that happens and where that goes, because where the party decides to do things, we don't always see necessarily a good outcome from it. There are some real major problems that are still going on over there that are getting increasingly worse every single day. And so few people are saying a damn thing about it. And it is really heartbreaking to watch an entire group of people vanish off the face of the earth. That is a serious, serious, serious problem.
And in light of that, I mean, it's super disheartening to see a lot of Western companies bowing to censorship and certain other things that are expected by the government of China. We just had an incident this week with that. There was a fairly controversial trailer for the new Call of Duty game, and there was a shot in there of Tiananmen Square protests, and apparently the company edited that out. I actually don't have the details on that story, but yeah, that's disgusting. Like, yes, it's a big market, and I'm glad to see. I want Chinese gamers to have access to good games, and I'm excited to see some developers starting a studio there and making something truly awesome. That's not only culturally relevant, but just looks like it's going to be an amazing game. But let's not compromise our ethics to be a part of that market. Okay, Western companies, can we agree to that? Can we agree to that some things are more important than money? I don't know if they're going to agree or not.
No.
Anyway,
I would definitely not hold my breath on that one. I don't think it's going to happen.
That wraps up our show for today. So thank you, everybody, for the great conversation in the live chat. Thank you for supporting this show by listening live or after the fact. Please do not forget to slam that like button before you leave. Really appreciate that. Subscribe, hit the notification bell, write comments below if you're listening after the fact. All of that helps us out. We also really enjoy just engaging in conversations with you. We respond to comments whenever we can. Obviously, you can't get to all of them, but if you want to be part of a great community, join our Discord server. Find the link in the description below. I want to thank all of our Patreon supporters and channel members who help to make this content possible. Our big damn heroes on Patreon: Robin, Shua82, Timebean, Schoolaman, Lady Reaver, and our 2 anonymous supporters at that level. Thank you so much. Our channel members on YouTube: Mr. Padzernick, Jer Schultz, Game Notes, Night City Punk, Terror K, Somnolence, and _let on. Thank you all very much as well. If you're listening after the fact on one of the audio-only platforms, we appreciate your interactions there as well. Don't forget you can join us live on Wednesdays and Saturdays for the live podcast and be a part of the discussion and get the latest info sooner. I will not be on Saturday's show. Cyb will be running the show solo, and we will announce plans for that. Yeah. On Discord, we'll... Cyb's going to try not to burn the studio down. The Augmented Reality Podcast is a presentation of the Triple S League. Check out our YouTube channel for game guides, reviews, comedy, news updates, tons more quality gaming content. My name is Ash, and on behalf of Cyb, thank you so much for listening. We'll talk to you again very soon.